Relieved that the mysterious container wasn't too heavy, he dragged it along the riverbank. The river's scenic bank was a popular relaxation spot for the locals. The river drew people to it, but until a man found the suspicious container, nobody knew just how deeply it could draw a person in. The man had spotted the mysterious ice cooler bobbing silently along the river. Finding a mysterious container floating downstream seemed like the stuff movies were made of. At first, the man used his phone's camera to zoom in on the object to get a better look. When he had ascertained that it was a cooler box, he assumed that one of the picnicking locals had lost it in the river. With his curiosity getting the better of him, he decided to fish it out. But in order to find its owner, he would have to look inside. The man then started to ask the people around him if they had lost a cooler box, but nobody had. "What if it's treasure?" the cameraman asked excitedly. Then the other men started to speculate as to what could be inside, but who would swim over to retrieve it? The cameraman said that he would do it himself if only he was wearing his swimming shorts. "I vote this guy," he said, pointing at a man with blue swimming trunks, and he had no choice but to comply. As the man in blue swimming shorts got ready to wade into the river, the cameraman skipped a flat stone across the water to judge the distance. Everybody on the shore waited excitedly for the man to reach the riverbank as he pushed the container to the other side of the river. On closer inspection, the cooler had been sealed with duct tape. This meant that someone had known that it would end up in the river. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our upcoming stories. After the duct tape was removed, the man lifted the hatch and took a peek inside. He had seen tiny limbs inside, but something told him that this couldn't be right. It was a baby doll. The men stood still, laughing nervously. The cameraman whispered, "I'm like shaking." But not all of the men were so spooked. "Maybe there's cocaine in there," one ventured. Then the man examined the doll closely, but there was nothing inside. Then one of the onlookers approached, wondering what all the commotion was about. "I guess somebody gets a free cooler out of it," the cameraman quipped. "Dibs on the doll." Then, more people gathered around to see the mysterious cooler and its unsettling contents for themselves. Mr. Technical Difficult, a popular YouTube channel, later uploaded the video, garnering millions of views and thousands of comments. The commenters expressed disbelief and amusement, but some were terrified. One user commented, "Put that thing back where it came from, or so help me." He was one of the many viewers who believed that the doll was part of something much more sinister, saying he just put a doll in a cooler, then taped it, and then finally he put it out in a river and started recording. Recently, one homeowner made a remarkable find. Hidden doors have always sparked an interest in most people. The thrill of finding a forgotten space makes people shudder with anticipation. Alexandra Pulo had nothing but fond memories of her childhood home. Her parents had originally bought the colonial property in 1974. You can only imagine how many memories the space picked up over the years. However, amidst the fond reminiscences, there was a subtle undertone of eeriness. As a child, Alexandra would have reoccurring dreams of hidden rooms and passages. If only she knew how true those actually were, and what power she'd eventually find. Alexandra had a vivid imagination. However, the dreams continued. But when she researched the meaning of such dreams, she was left disappointed. However, upon closer inspection as an adult, Alexandra was dazed by the cleverness of her childhood reveries. Alexandra's mother had become ill. She was an elderly lady. She was a tough old lady, so the family had every faith that she would recover. Her condition grew progressively worse. They began to fear the worst, until one day, the unexpected struck. In short succession, two harrowing occurrences took place. Within the space of a few short months, Alexandra lost both her mom and brother. This left the family in disarray, particularly since they were so closely knit as a unit. Thankfully, Alexandra still had her dad. A death can distress any family, let alone two members passing in such quick succession. However, remarkably, Alexandra and her father made it through. The pair relied on the love of one another. But a problem was arising. Alexandra's dad was old, and the colonial home was large. He was quickly learning how unmanageable it was for one person. He broke the news to his daughter one afternoon. Alexandra's dad called her over. He explained how he was beginning to struggle in the home. As an elderly person, there was just too much for him to keep up with. Due to the sheer size of the house, he was unable to maintain all of it. As such, he planned on selling the home. All of a sudden, Alexandra's precious childhood home was in peril, and with it, a hidden magic. Even though Alexandra wasn't ready for her dad's news, she quickly came up with a counter. She suggested he sign over the home to her. Surprisingly, her father readily agreed. With that, the home was guaranteed to stay in the family. Alexandra was thrilled. She then decided to let the home out. She found lovely new tenants in no time. But it wasn't long until mysterious things began to happen in the basement. Shortly after her new tenants moved in, problems began to occur in the basement. It was as though the house was being hostile towards the new family. Slowly, an old warning began to come back to Alexandra. She remembered a conversation her father had with a neighbor. The old man had warned her father that their home was hiding something depraved. Alexandra began to question whether an otherworldly power had influence over her home. Until she started looking, Alexandra remembered the man's warning that their basement had a basement of its own. Her father had waved off the warning as wild ramblings of an old man. However, with all of the odd occurrences taking place in the basement, Alexandra began to question the validity of the statement. So, she decided to look for herself. Professional builders were hired to excavate the basement area, and when they did, they were left aghast. When the builders began to excavate, it didn't take long for them to discover something odd. They quickly unearthed what Alexandra had suspected. Her basement had a basement of its own. But when she entered, Alexandra was left stupefied. The simple room had little to it. When she approached a local historian, Alexandra learned of a dark history of her town. It had been home to a movement known as the abolitionists. These people dedicated their lives to abolishing slavery in Northern America. As such, they created the historical Underground Railroad. This was a system of tunnels developed to help people escape through Lansdowne. However, the historian needed to take a closer look, but upon further inspection, the findings were baffling. Upon further inspection, the historian could reach no substantial conclusion. Due to the nature of the room, it could have been a simple storage room. But why, then, was it sealed shut? All the historian could proffer was to delve deeper into the history of the home, but Alexandra knew in her heart what the room was for, and when a neighbor revealed a similar scenario in their home, her beliefs grew stronger than ever. A neighbor of Alexandra had revealed something interesting. They, too, had found a hidden room in their home. They were made aware that it was, in fact, a part of the Underground Railroad. Upon hearing this, Alexandra knew this was the purpose of her hidden room. Even though decades have passed, little pieces of the abolitionists keep popping up. The Underground Railroad was a brilliant system. This helped Americans overcome a grisly situation. "I need to figure out next steps," Alexandra said, but it seems she is keen to pursue the room's purpose further.